pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule. There's a room where the light won't find you. Holding hands on the walls come tumbling down. When they do, I'll be right behind you. So glad we've almost made it. So sad they had to fade it. Everybody wants to rule the I can't stand this indecision, married with a lack of vision. Everybody wants to rule. Say that you'll never need it. One headline, why believe it? Everybody wants to rule. All for freedom and for pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule.
Coming to you from sunny South Carolina, it's the Palmetto Conservative Show with your host, Jim Lee. From the upstate to the low country, from the coast to Columbia, we'll cover what's right and uncover what's wrong in the Palmetto State. If we see it, we say it. We call it like it is in South Carolina. And now, it's the Palmetto Conservative Show. Let's jam.
And welcome back into Hour 2 of the Palmetto Conservative Show here on the Conservative Broadcast Media Network. I'm your host, Jim Lee, part political junkie, part technology geek, part commentator, and sometimes snarky agitator for the application of common sense and the pursuit of critical thinking in the marketplace of ideas, particularly as it relates to the Palmetto State. I don't profess to have all the answers, folks, just an awful lot of relevant questions for our friends in the cacistocracy. Hopefully something here to cause you to think, to ponder, to provoke thought, give you something to chew on. Thanks for sticking with us here, back on the other side now, and we welcome you into tonight's Kabuki Theater. Yes, this evening I want to talk about the Kabuki Theater that is the nonsense going on in Washington regarding negotiations on the fiscal cliff. As is typically the case, as was the case throughout the entire presidential political campaigns on both sides. More time was spent talking about things that really don't matter, and too little time was focused on dealing with the issues before us. Let me first of all start out by saying that for those of you that fear we are going to go over a fiscal cliff, that all the drama and hyperbole that's being spewed, well, don't worry your silly little head. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. There is no fiscal cliff coming. Because, folks, we're already over the cliff. We went over the cliff a long time ago. We're down in the ravine at the bottom of the cliff, and the question now is whether or not we're going to continue to dig deeper into the ravine, or whether we're going to actually spend some time thinking about how in the world can we begin to climb back up onto the ledge over which we've fallen. Right now, what we have going on in Washington isn't even a debate about donut holes. It's not a debate about whether or not we're going to cut spending. It's not a debate about whether or not we need additional revenue. What we're dealing with is kabuki theater about how to maintain power in Washington. How to avoid actually doing something right for the future of America, for the future of our children, to honor those who have gone before us that gave us the opportunity to make the stupid decisions that we've made over the last 3 or 4 decades. A bipartisan problem, by the way. And how we can keep the American people from realizing precisely the mess we've created, and to see if we can at least kick this thing down the road so that we don't have to deal with it. That's the kabuki theater that's going on in Washington. On the right, the argument will be from the left, you don't want to touch entitlements. You don't want to cut spending. All you want to do is tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend. And those are great cliches, and there's a grain of truth in a lot of that. But on the other hand, the left will skew the right by saying that you only care about the rich. All you want to do is cut taxes for the rich. And you're against the middle class. And while I personally don't think there's a grain of truth in any of that, there is... I take that back. I must admit there is a grain of truth in that the Republicans have had the opportunity to try and pursue meaningful tax reform, to lower taxes on everyone and not just those who have the means to take advantage of the loopholes. But they've done nothing about it. But to suggest that anything going on in Washington is meaningful negotiations around what the root cause is, about what needs to happen in order to save this country from digging itself so deep in the ravine over the fiscal cliff that we've already gone, it's nothing more than kabuki theater. We have a Treasury Secretary that seems to think that having an unlimited debt ceiling is a good thing. Well, while we've had personal bankruptcy law and business bankruptcy law in this country for 200 years, and have generally followed it up until the Obama administration's takeover of General Motors, there is no bankruptcy protection for a nation. There really isn't any bankruptcy protection for a municipality. although we've found ways to be able to do that by injecting those municipalities with grants and funds from other entities, i.e. the federal government or the state, to protect them. But in reality, there is no bankruptcy protection plan for a country. But even though there isn't one, we are at a point now where as a country we need some adults, we need some leaders who are willing to take us through reorganization, restructuring, so that we can survive. And through all that, there is going to be pain. But I believe that if we confront these things directly, and we're willing to call things for what they are, the American people can get their head wrapped around that. Yes, there is a certain group of people who want to remain on public assistance because they think it's easier. That group of people is a diverse group of people. Cuts across all identity groups. But that doesn't make it any less true. Then there's a group of people who are on some form of public assistance who don't want to be, but can't seem to get out because every step out is a step back. And then there's corporate welfare, where we as a federal government are providing subsidies to businesses that maybe we never should, maybe we should have, but we no longer can nor should. And maybe it is time to actually take a step back and look at having truly free markets, getting the government out of picking winners and losers. In short, it's time that we close down the kabuki theater. It's time we took down the curtains, put away the props, took down the backdrops, and had some adults sit down and get around a table and acknowledge that which every breathing, critical thinking American knows is true. And that is this: we have a spending problem. And that spending problem is a bipartisan problem. And what we need to do is to acknowledge that, to establish some core guiding principles. And I might suggest a few in Article 2, Section 8 of the Constitution, to establish some priorities that the federal government must address, needs to address, not just wants to address, but needs to address, and begins to put together a restructuring plan that ensures that those core responsibilities are met, and that also puts us in a position to deal with the mess that we've created in terms of $16 trillion, actually $16.3 trillion in direct debt, hundreds of trillions of dollars in unfunded liabilities. And we put this country on a path towards healing, coming out the other side, if you will, of bankruptcy. But what we have going on at a macro level here in this country, we can see